Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law. My signal is good.
Your signal is good.
I'm feeling strong.
The pattern is full.
And you are back on Money in the Law on my FM 101.3 with your hosts, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group and John Drowan from Main Effort Financial. And today we are joined, we're on our best behavior because although our voices were made for radio, our faces are actually going to be on TV because the Holliston Cable Access TV representation of Christian is here and we're being filmed. So for those of you watching, hello. For those of you listening, hello.
It's funny. I could tell that we were going to be on TV today because you're a collared shirt guy today. You're all dressed up. You know, it's like
I told you.
It's like school picture day. Right?
No. I actually did have a heads up about it, which I totally forgot.
Yeah.
Until I had already dressed up. I already put my normal clothes on today. Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to your even like, what are you, a completely different outfit? You show up in
sometimes, drag? Yeah. Sometimes I wear a clown suit. Yeah. Sometimes I wear my fireman's outfit.
There you go. Yeah. Whatever the day is, right? Hey, by the way, coming to you today, my FM 101.3 from the New England Bonsai Gardens studio.
Yeah.
It's like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon in here. They got bonsai trees all over the place. And which brings me back to what's everybody's most famous bonsai tree reference?
The Karate Kid.
Yes,
yes, sir.
absolutely.
Yes, sir. The original.
That's
the
right.
original Karate Kid.
Right.
It's the first time where most people in our generation actually were exposed to a bonsai tree.
Yeah.
Right? And we're like, what is that? You know, and you remember not Ralph Macchio, but who's the Karate Kid? Who's the sensei? What's his real name? What's the actor's real name?
Pat. Is it Pat Mojita?
Pat Mojita, you are
That's
correct.
It.
Yep. Well done.
Well done. Right there.
Done.
2 points for the Marsden team. Yep.
So, yeah, back to the Karate Kid. We're not going to be talking about the Karate Kid today. However, we are in the bonsai studio, so we'll be thinking about the Karate Kid.
So lush and tropical.
For those of you, right, and those of you watching on TV, you actually see the lush and tropicalness.
Well, they're off to the left. You can't see them. You're all left, my right. They're off to the left.
It's actually behind Christian.
That's right. Yep.
Christian's he's in the bonsai forest back there. We're looking at it.
That's right.
In fact, I can't even
barely
see him.
You barely see him through the hedgerow. Barely see him. So New England Bonsai Gardens. That's where we're at today. So how's your week going? A lot going on.
Good.
Busy?
Let's go down the checklist. Now we have to talk about the weather. The weather is here. The spring.
The weather is here. Wish you were beautiful. Yep. Great quote. It's supposed to be coming. Still, I'm not convinced, by the way, that mid-40s is spring.
No.
Not convinced. Never have been.
Not at 26 degrees when I wake up in the morning.
Oh, putting the kids in the bus.
No, that's
still
not
warming the car up. April 11th, which I love that. Yep, that's
scraping
great.
the ice off the car.
Yep. That's right. A little frost on the pumpkin still. Did you put away all your snow implements? Those put away yet?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, put away in that they're somewhere in my garage. Yeah, they're not outside.
Yeah, we still have the snowblower on the front porch.
You never
My
know.
wife pointed it out the other day. She's like, "Yeah, it might be." She's kind of humming the Sanford and Son theme in the background, trying to tell me it might be time to clean that front porch off.
I'm not saying that there may be a tree or two that has a few Christmas lights in my yard. I'm not saying that.
Assuming they survived all the
storms.
But
I'm not saying it either.
Yep. Yeah, we're known to be a little slow on the takedown.
We meaning you and me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We're two handy guys, like to get stuff very organized. That's why, that's why our clients stay with us because because you know what? Because we're not spending our time taking down Christmas decorations, shining up the garage,
that's right.
Hanging stuff. You know what we're doing? We're at work.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm at work.
Looking at your estate plan, looking at your portfolio.
Exactly.
You know, that's the kind of dedication you expect.
Watching the market, right? I don't have time for that.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not like anybody in your house or anybody in my house is going to do it other than us.
Absolutely not.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not knocking the Marsden family. All I know is that the Marsden family looks a whole lot like the Drowan family when it comes to the chores list.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's nothing you can do about it. It's just kind of one of those on the list. Yeah. On the list.
Yeah, the son that you and I will never have is not going to come, and he's not going to plow the driveway.
I am a fair employer when it comes to the chores. I have no problem dishing those out. And letting them know that hey, I give my daughter a hard time every once in a while. I'll say to her, hey, do me a favor, when you get a sec, just dishes in the dishwasher, put those in the back and forth, fill the dishwasher, and empty the dishwasher. And I keep having to explain to them, guys, you know how it works, right? No. When after the dishwasher runs, those dishes have to go somewhere, right? And when I say go somewhere, I don't mean take them out, use them, and put them in the sink. I mean they got to go away.
You don't and then when it doesn't happen the way you want it, or it happens badly, then you end up doing it, and you're mad about it, right? You're like, oh, I gotta redo this, right? I'm gonna take the kid,
Yeah,
they're
I
all
can
in the
fit
wrong
way more
place.
than this in here.
And what they're doing is they're snickering behind you because it reminds me of the first, when I was in the Army, I remember this guy told me, he said, hey, if anybody ever asks you to make coffee, like make them some coffee, what you need to do is you need to spit in that coffee. You need to get dirt in it. You need
everything.
The worst coffee you can make, hand it to them, and you'll never get asked to make coffee again. Yeah. So that's kind of like the dishwasher emptying in our house too.
That's right.
Dad, I don't know what to do. Where do I put these dishes?
Yeah. I wouldn't, like I tease the girls all the time. I said, I wouldn't use your bathroom on a bet. Right? I wouldn't use it on a bet. And then they look at me like, hey, 10 heads. And I'm like, guys, really? I mean, come on. We're not splitting the enemy. You're bilingual. You speak multiple languages. You're well educated. Can somebody just clean the bathroom, right? It's amazing what they'll do to not, how much they'll do to not do something. It's hysterical, right? It's beyond hysterical.
Yeah.
So that's, so there's a lot of spring cleaning that needs to get done.
Spring cleaning still is on the list.
Long answer to your easy question. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I wanted to talk about something with respect to the legal world because I feel a lot of times we spend a lot of time on money. Actually, no. This bridges both quadrants. I think is the idea of special needs trusts. How about that?
Oh.
Do you know anything about that?
I've heard of them. I've heard of them. Somewhat familiar with them. Yeah.
So I did want to kind of bring up the market really quick before and as everybody has kind of seen lately that the market's kind of been doing its thing, right?
Oh.
And, where we were for a while there, we were kind of on this kind of boring uphill climb.
Everyone's calling. You're the greatest. You're so smart.
Like
Sean.
the little
I make
engine.
so much
like
money.
You're on my wire here. You're on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Are those new shoes?
No, these are old. No, these are old.
Those aren't your drinking shoes.
No.
So so the market was kind of it was great, right? It was like just steady, kind of moving up, maybe a little bump here and there. And lately, in talk of all of in all the trade talk and all of the the interest rate and kind of all of the kind of the investigations, everything that's kind of going on politically. Oftentimes, what you'll see some static happen on the day-to-day market. And we've had some recent, plus 200, plus 400, down 300, all kind of in a short period of time.
Down 186.
That would be not on Saturday, but
That's right.
But the market is not down on Saturday. Remember, the market's closed right now.
So that's right. Relax, everybody. Relax.
But just the idea of so that gets people nervous, right? It gets people nervous because there's along with the market movement, which is normal for the for the size of the market that we're talking about. It also it's magnified by the media and it's magnified by everybody talks about it and you hear it on from your clients like, hey, I'm down, I just lost 200. My favorite, I'm down like $5,000 or $15,000 or whatever. My favorite line is I heard recently in the week is when Zuckerberg was when he testified for Congress. Yeah. So Mark Zuckerberg, he is the founder and CEO of Facebook, not a sponsor. But we're welcome to have those.
Could be.
We're welcome to have him come down. He spent some time in Massachusetts.
Yeah, he knows a little bit about social media.
Yeah. So right. So and I guess he did well, right? His testimony kind of was good, and then the next day Facebook stock jumped, right? So it jumped almost 5 points, and it was saying like Zuckerberg's testimony capital earns him $3 billion.
Yeah. Just be nice. And he went to all these coaching classes and. Don't offend the senators. Don't be aggravating. Don't get them upset. Right.
Because he can.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He plays in that pool where he's got enough money to be he can upset people and he'll still get invited back to the party. Right. It's funny. I was watching some of it, and as you're watching him, because he's so young looking, right? It almost looked like he was in some kind of like university inquisition. Like where it was like some kind of a panel interview for the frat,
or either that, or they were asking him questions about there was some concern about a paper that he wrote, and I'm always waiting for he's standing there, I'm always waiting for his dad to come jumping out and say, son, don't answer that. I'll take care of that, right?
One of those TV movies, right? Where the father comes in and says, I'll take care of this.
Yeah, you're like, wait, where's your old man? Like don't you need an adult to be sitting with you at this table?
That's right. Like Scent of a Woman, right? The Inquisition, where they're on the table, and they're back and forth,
He's a bad man.
That's right. Bad man. That's right. That whole scene was fantastic. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming. But
it's funny. You mentioned something a minute ago, which I think is important to keep in mind in these types of volatile sort of periods for the market, which is because the market has grown so much, these point declines in some respects become, something, a shiny object for the news, right?
Yep.
The shiny object is, the market was down 300 points today. Well, okay, but 300 points today is a lot different than 300 points, 10 years ago.
1987.
That's right. Not as big a deal, and some of these, it's all about the percentage wins and losses, if you will. And so that's something to keep in mind, because the talking heads need to find some way to get you to watch the show and stay tuned. So this idea of point declines, it's not the whole story, I guess.
So here's for us two talking heads that are on our show.
Yeah,
let's just we're gonna leave it at this. Okay, remember, all of your investments have a purpose, right?
Yes, they do.
They have a purpose. So if your purpose is to grow over time, then you inherently are going to assume a little more risk. With assuming risk comes the fact that your account could very well go up as well as it could go down.
Oh, yeah.
So remember, if you're investing over a period of time, you're expecting those. This is a short time period. A week, a month, sometimes even a year is a short time period with respect to market movement. So the way I would describe it to my clients is like, okay, so let's say that the S&P 500 is at 2,200, right, or 2,300. We're not looking at when the S&P is at 2,300. We want to look at it when the S&P is at 3,300, right?
Yep.
And kind of what happens between 2,300 and 3,300. I don't know. I know it's not going to be.
It's not a straight shot.
It's not going to be a straight line, right? It's not going to be a straight line. And will it get ugly in between there? It certainly could.
Sure.
It has in the past. When is it going to hit 3,300? That's the trillion-dollar question,
that's the
right?
60. It is.
That's
right.
the one that nobody knows. Nobody knows the answer to that. But what we kind of make the assumption based on our the fact of why we invest and why we assume that risk is we think that in fact it is going to go that at some point, based on the United States, based on the world economy, that the economy is going to grow. Now, it's not going to grow in a straight line and things aren't going to happen perfectly, but we're going to get from point A to point B. What happens in between, that's the big question mark.
And the idea that if it's all about the time order of your returns as well, right? So if you're in the accumulation phase of your life, if you will, and you're trying to accumulate retirement dollars and things like that.
I don't feel like I'm accumulating enough right now.
But the best thing that could happen right now is a terrible market. Believe it or not, right? If you're 50 and you're planning a 65 or a 70 exit strategy and you're trying to accumulate dollars right now and you're buying shares. In many respects, the next thing, what you want is you want a terrible 5 or 10 year period in the market. You want to accumulate all your shares, you want to dump all your dough in, and then you want that thing to go like gangbusters.
Hold on.
Just as you're walking out the door.
Hold on. A terrible 10-year period in the market. Let's just. I don't know if we've ever had a terrible 10 years.
Well, we had a 10-year window where you made no money.
Well, there's that.
That would be terrible.
I mean, terrible in the sense that, yeah, I guess that's one form of terror.
Well, if you had think about it this way: if you had predicated your retirement planning on a phenomenal 10-year run,
yeah,
and you got zero growth out of your 401k,
then you're hurting.
You're bummed.
Yeah,
you're bummed.
Hurting. Then your retirement plan changes.
Yes. To your point, terrible is relative,
yeah,
right? So, but I guess the point is, if you're in the accumulation phase. A market that's volatile, bouncing around a little bit.
You're absolutely right.
That's your friend. That's your friend.
Especially right, and what you're referring to, I think, is you're talking about dollars. So if I'm always consistently investing in my whatever my retirement account, my 401k, my IRA, my Roth IRA, and regardless of kind of where the market is, I'm still banging in money. I'm still putting in money. So when the market does decline. And as long as I'm buying quality stuff, which you assume that you are, based on your advisor or based on your 401k plan, that you're buying good things at a discount, right?
Correct.
So if I'm buying good things at a discount, that's good, right? Because at some point, we anticipate that they will come back. No guarantee, but we think it could.
Well, and this is where, we talk about all the time. You mentioned it yourself. When the market's going up and everything's cooking along and everybody's making some money and they can see growth in their account month over month, everybody's fine, and it's quiet, and the phones don't ring, and everybody's happy, and that's great. But when you get these periods of volatility, if you have concerns, if you have something that's worrying you or concerning you, this is where you pick up the phone and you call your advisor and you say,
your people.
I have a question, right? What's going on? Any thoughts about how I may or may not or should not be responding to these types of ups and downs in the market? And your advisor will tell you, well, let's talk about it. Let's walk through it, right? Because that's what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow and help you stay focused on your goals to make sure that you're, again, looking long-term, looking big picture, kind of help you pull back from the ledge a little bit because, for all the and by the way, for all the obvious reasons, there were a lot of folks who got really burned in 2008, and that mark is still there, right? And so they're saying, I don't want to go through that again. I don't have time to go through that again, right? 10 years ago, I had 20 years to retirement. Now I got 10 years to retirement. I got a lot less time on in front of me. That runway is a lot shorter than it used to be. Now I got to figure it out. So, these are the times that you can really. You can have some really good conversations with your advisor to make sure that you're sort of sharpening that pencil.
Right, and everything is, everything's in perspective, right? Everything is.
Yeah.
So if, like you mentioned, if you're dependent upon your time duration, right? Dependent upon when you need to access that money, or when potentially you need to access that money, that drives kind of what your risk tolerance is going to be. So somebody who's taking we have a lot of clients that are taking money out right now, right?
Yep.
So they're drawing money out of an account that when the market goes down, that account is going to go down. So they're like, whoa, we have to, and those conversations, oftentimes the conversation is just, we're talking, it's like you have to kind of remind them, okay, remember, this is what we did. This is we built this in order to ride out the market, in order to persevere through both up and down markets. But at some point, and then while this is happening, your advisor's job, especially if they're managing your money, their job is to make sure that the things inside your account. I mean, the market's going to go up and down. It's going to drive things, but as long as your investments are reflective of quality investments, and that they're kind of doing what the market does and doing kind of as you'd expect them in a given time period in the market or a given situation, then as long as they're kind of obeying the kind of the general rules, then that's okay. It's when the ones are outliers, right? When the ones that say or if you because the way your portfolio is kind of evolved, maybe you're kind of overweighted in one area or underweighted in an area. That's where your advisor's job is to kind of balance that up and make sure that that you're in that asset allocation, you're in that portfolio that in their minds and in their kind of expert opinion that they believe is going to be able to endure both the up and down market.
Well, you bring up a great point, which is this idea.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you.
As always, you bring up another great point. Let me just clarify and improve on it. But I mean, the idea obviously is if the market's at 10%, right, and you've, as part of your evaluation and your analysis with your advisor, have indicated that you have a tolerance for risk and volatility of 70% of what the market's doing, right? That to your point, that's where you want to be, right? The market's at 10, and based on what your time frame is and your risk tolerance, things like that, you're in sort of a 70% range, and then let's say you're up 7 compared to the market at 10. That's exactly where you should be, right? That's what you've indicated you're comfortable with. That's what your tolerance for risk is, and that's where you should be. To your point, what you're looking to avoid is market's at 10 and you're up 1, right? That's where you have. Now you could be up 1 for all the right reasons, right? And they're very well could be really legit reasons why you're up 1. That's where you want to. That's kind of where the rubber meets the road, where you find out, am I where I should be? Am I where I am comfortable being? Yeah. That's the big part of that discussion, and that's really the clarifying part for these volatility.
Yeah, and that's the you have that
periods.
When the I'm sorry.
That's right. Good. Go ahead. Jump right in.
Profit period.
Yeah, jump right in.
Well, that's the thing is that it goes both ways, right? It's the when the markets am I up enough in the market, but then on the other side of that coin, you may be when the market drops, and when it drops, that's when when it really gets people's attention. We always say that what gets more emotion is like being up 10% or being down 10%, right? Yep. And it's always the down 10%. Always, I've lost money. I'm
10%. Like, of course, it's up 10%. Why would it be? That's what it's supposed to be. That's what I do. That's what I do.
The stock market.
I make money in the market. I'm a player. Down 10%. Honey, call the broker. Call the broker.
Down 10%.
Call John. Let's get out.
Fire him.
All right, I want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the always exciting effervescent world of special needs trust.
Don't patronize it.
I'm not patronizing it.
Well, you sounded a little patronizing.
Oh, I disagree.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you're well dressed today.
That was my radio voice. That's right. That's right. Don't let the cufflinks throw you off.
All right, we'll be right back on Money in the Law with my FM 101.3 in the New England Bonsai Garden Studio.
Love it.
Yeah, here we are, New England Bonsai Garden Studio here on WMRC and also in the Holliston Cable Access TV. We will be
Are those
right.
birds? The birds just fly by?
We'll be right back.
And you're back. My FM 101.3, Money in the Law, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Droham, and for Financial, Christian, rocking and rolling behind the camera here at the New England Bonsai Gardens. I think there is some wildlife in the garden here. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, Christian's he's a wild man.
He is wildlife. He's a wild man.
He's a wild man. All right, so listen, I got before we get started onto the Special Needs Trust, I have a couple of shout outs that I have to shout.
Please.
So this past weekend, not this weekend, the past weekend was the big play, the Willy
Wonka play, yes.
The middle school play, which I was lucky that both of my children were in the play.
My daughter still talks about it.
Yeah, and Kendall's one of the biggest, like she's a middle school, Rams middle school drama club, like absolute group, like great supporter, right? And my other shout out was not only to Kendall, but to her old man, who also was a supporter of the middle school in one of the Willy Wonka big giant candy baskets.
Yep.
I think the Marsden Law gave one of those out. I think it was Saturday. It was the only one I wasn't there. It was Saturday afternoon,
yeah.
Right?
So you know what's funny about that? So my daughter goes to the play. She's psyched to go to the play. She goes with a bunch of her friends. They're having a great time, right? So she goes to the play, and yes, you were kind enough to ask us to support the play, which we're happy to do. We love musical theater, so we support. So we do the candy basket, golden ticket candy basket, right? Which is exactly how it sounds, right? Giant basket of candy for kids. And so my daughter comes home, and she's like, Dad, you didn't tell me that you were sponsoring this candy basket.
So cool.
I said to her, well, I don't run a lot of my marketing initiatives by you. Do you want to know what we're doing on Facebook? Do you want to know what our other social media strategy is? So she's all bent out of shape that she didn't know it. But then once she kind of got there and said, oh, that's my dad's candy basket, right?
All of a sudden you're cool.
She basically takes on the celebrity of the Marsden Law basket, right? Because, she's a Marsden, right?
I am the heir apparent of the Marsden Law practice.
That's right.
Of the conglomerate, yeah.
Yep, currently not in law school. Currently has no plans to go to law school, but for all intents and purposes, probably the managing partner of the Marsden. All I know, she got up and was on behalf of the Marsden Law Group, I'd like to hand over the candy basket. Right. Kendall Marsden here.
Not unlike Tony Stark did with his old man. Yep. Not unlike Bruce Wayne did with his old man. Right?
Yep,
same
absolutely.
thing. The same thing.
So it was very
good for her.
Very
as she should.
So
congratulations, everybody, in the Willy. It was a really good experience. And Holliston Cable Access TV was a big supporter of it as well, because they actually let me use that camera right there to make some promotional video. And then of course I walk in there and I'm like, I need to edit this, and then everybody's like, all right, let me show you how to Let me show you how to do this. Right?
Yeah.
So everybody from Bruce and Don and Lisa, they all squared me away. So.
Well, and also a shout out it should go, for all the right reasons, to the cast and crew, because for anybody who's watched from the outside, this is a project.
It's no joke.
This is absolutely no joke. This is a absolute, for real, legit commitment for the kids and everybody involved with the production, and it is only right to give them the props that they deserve, because they put it on for everybody's enjoyment. But behind the scenes, there is so much work that goes into it, and the commitment that the kids put out there is something to be rewarded and recognized.
And we'll say it was Beth Hecker, who is the director. This is her sixth play.
Yeah, everybody.
And she does a pretty remarkable job. And so we were lucky to be part of it. So congratulations to the Rams Middle School Drama Club and Willy Wonka.
The React players?
The React players.
Love it.
Act, react.
Nice.
All right, so let's get into Special Needs Trust. All right, so why don't you give us kind of like an overview of what exactly a Special Needs Trust is and where one would need it.
And
then I'll correct you.
No, all right, please. Then you. That's right.
Then I'll expound on your.
So essentially, the idea behind a Special Needs Trust is somebody's getting some benefits. It's usually some Medicaid benefits or some Social Security benefits that they are using for self-support. Right? It might be SSI, it might be SSDI. Or it might be Medicaid benefits for health insurance, right? They're getting some benefit as a result, usually of some type of disability, right? Whether it's a physical disability, whether it's a cognitive disability, but some type of disability. And so the concern is that if something happens to somebody, right, it's usually a parent, if something happens to a parent, their estate, when it's distributed to their kids, some portion of their estate is going to get distributed to a child or to somebody who's getting benefits, and that inheritance, if you will kick them off their benefits or will reduce their benefits or will result and their benefits coming to an end because now they have resources, they have assets, right?
Right.
That's the whole sort of the back of the napkin, you know, standing around the grill at the barbecue conversation. That's what it does. So you see kids, for example, if parents have children who have Down syndrome, they'll do a lot of planning around this type of area because they want to make sure that they provide for their child, but also still have benefits come to their child that help out. In many cases, it's health insurance because the medical condition can be obviously very expensive, very costly, and so they sort of plan around this type of benefit so that it doesn't necessarily ruin the way things have been going for quite some time in many cases.
Right. So if I understand this correctly, so that means that any inheritance money that goes into this trust, it's not going to affect my overall. It's not going to be counted against me to where I will no longer qualify for said benefits.
Correct. That's right. That's right. Now there's usually but there's a distinction that needs to be made, and the distinction is that there are two types of special needs trusts. All right. There's a special needs trust that's basically what they would call self-settled. All right. And what that means is if somebody inherits money and the planning was never done, right? And this is not unusual where you see, you know, for any number of reasons, you know, we'll use mom and dad as the example, they never got around to doing any planning, right? Or they just said, look, we're treating all the kids equally. We're not going to make any provisions for anybody. We're just going to have everybody get their money, a third, a third, a third. That's what we're going to do. And one of the kids shouldn't get their money outright because it's going to cause a problem with their benefits or something of that nature. And there's a whole, you know, people think they did this, they think they took care of this already, or they just never make any inquiries as to what it's going to do, or they don't think about it that way. You know, the other thing too is somebody might be getting an SSI benefit, but they might function, you know, relatively well on a day-to-day basis. And so in mom or dad's eyes, they might not necessarily see it that way. They don't think about, if my kids inherit money, is one of my kids on this benefit, on Mass Health, for example, is it going to cause a problem, right? So they just don't think about it.
Or they think that, you know, by the time, especially as the kids start to get older, well, their brother or their sister is going to be able to help them out. They'll help them manage their money. You know, maybe they'll be in the joint bank account with them. But once if like you have adult children, like your brother, your sister will help them to take care of that. And you're right. There's no true legal planning that kind of goes along with that, which could trigger the issue of not qualifying for your benefit.
Yeah, the parent says, look, I have a house. I want the house to go to all three of the kids. Well, when the house gets sold, one of the kids is going to get money, and that's going to create some problems, right? So this is sort of after the fact planning. And when I say after the fact planning, what I mean is, in the special needs world, the person who inherits the money and then realizes, oh, I shouldn't have got this money, right? This is going to cause a problem for my benefits. They can set up their own special needs trust, all right? And they can put money into that trust. But the way it works when you do it that way is Medicaid or Mass Health or the benefits folks, they will say to you, look, you can set the trust up and you can put your own money in there because you didn't think you were going to get it or you shouldn't have gotten it. But guess what? If something happens to you down the road, we're keeping a list, right? And we're checking it twice, right? We're checking it more than twice.
Right.
But we have a list of everything we've paid or everything we've spent to take care of you with this money. So if you get money and you place your money in your own special needs trust and you then pass away, we, as the Medicaid folks or as the government, we will raise our hand and say, we're entitled to some money. You got it. We are first in line to get paid, and this is how much we've paid, right? And they'll pull out their calculator and they'll put on the green visor and they'll add it all up and they'll say, okay.
I always think they'll have one of those adding machines.
They do.
They'll have
one
of those. There's tape coming out of it. Yeah.
Yep. And if they use something that doesn't do that, they still make the noise.
Yeah.
So at least that's exactly right. So you feel like that's exactly right. Yeah. So at least when you're going through it, it's not as awkward.
There's an
to sit there in
app. There's
silence.
an app on on their computer that actually makes that noise.
It's the silence that makes everybody weird. So as long as there's some noise going on, everybody's fine with it.
What's he doing?
So that's what happens. So in those cases, in what they call a self-settled special needs trust, you get some money, you can do something with it, you got to do it quick, you can do something with it, put it aside, use it for your benefit, so kind of best of both worlds, right? Get to use your money, but if something happens to you at the end of the day and you're not around, the Uncle Sam is first in line to get paid, and then you can name who else is second, third, fourth in line. So it's usually a situation where somebody will say, look, government first, and then my siblings.
Right. So all that does is essentially it preserves my ability to continue to get benefits.
That's right. It's a quality of life move.
So I still get to keep my benefits, which may very well be far outweigh whatever I've inherited.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So,
right.
I mean, it's one thing if I inherit $10 million, then it may be like, well, it's kind of
I'm off benefits. That's
it's
right.
academic, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But if I inherit $100,000, that may not necessarily sustain me for my lifetime. It may not equate to my benefits that I'm receiving on a monthly basis. So,
but it's a quality of life issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
It could pay for a lot of things that really make your life better. That would not necessarily be available to you because you're of limited means, right? So that's where there's a win from that perspective.
Hold on, wait. Let me just interrupt right here. Christian, you're paying attention to all this, right? Wake up, all right? I don't want you. I'm nervous.
No, he's
getting a little. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was thinking about something else, but I need you, stay with us, kid. Stay with us.
Don't nod off. If the camera points at the ground, you'll know that Christian is nodding
or
off.
the camera points over here. Here, point
That's
your camera. Point over there. That's the sound. That's our.
That's
our
us.
sound.
That's us.
Bam.
Yep.
Bam.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's good
stuff.
radio.
It's good radio right there. Great radio. It's a visual experience. So part two of that is there's what in a perfect world, if something gets done ahead of time, is a special needs trust that's set up by somebody else, right? So a third party sets it up. So in many cases, for parents who are pre-planning and are doing the planning, then they're the ones that will set up a special needs trust for their child. And then they'll say essentially, look, if I have 3 kids and I want one of my children has some cognitive issues or some physical issues and they're getting benefits and I want to allow them to continue to get their benefits, I'll have their money go to a special needs trust that we set up, that mom and dad set up. So the kid doesn't set it up. Mom and dad set it up, and then they basically say 1/3 of my estate, whatever that looks like, is going to go to my child, all right, inside of this special needs trust. And the big difference is the money goes to the special needs trust that they set up. That money can be used to take care of the child, provide benefits on top and above and beyond what they're getting through Medicaid or some of these other benefits they may be getting. And then at that child's passing, that money can go wherever mom and dad want it to go, and Medicaid does not get in line,
right?
Because the child didn't make the decision, mom and dad made the decision, and they can do whatever they want to do with their money. So that's the idea.
The other in our practice, when we, the other way we kind of look at that special needs trust is, you've kind of said, well, you kind of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but in many cases, if you have a child who's like going to grow into adulthood and not have the ability, they don't have the same capabilities that maybe their brothers and sisters have, you may load that up. You may say, okay, you know what, I'm going to, instead of leaving, everybody gets equal money, I may be forced to, put half or more than half or all of our estate needs to go to your brother or into that special needs trust because they have no way to earn income. You're gonna grow up. You're gonna get a job. You're gonna, again, probably with limited estates, that's largely the case. Oftentimes, they'll have a life insurance policy. Sometimes parents will have a life insurance policy that'll name the special needs trust as the beneficiary, just in order to make sure that child has assets to be able to, to care for them. And it may turn out to, in some of the examples that we've seen, where one of the siblings is going to kind of, that the plan is that when the parents pass, that one of the siblings will kind of assume control of his brother or sister, or guardianship of his brother and sister. And they'll need assets to, they'll need extra money. They'll need extra money to take care of them. It's one of those things where, take a step back from it. Take a step back, and you see it in your practice. We see it in our practice. It's one of those things where when we talk about the details of it, it's it's a business decision. It's legal work. It's a trust. But when you take a step back and you look at actually what these people have to go through, so people who have whenever every time and we've had this conversation before. Every time when you see someone who has someone with a disability with a child, right, and you see them, and you're like, just when you thought you're feeling sorry for yourself, and you're like, I'm having a bad, things are so tough for me right now. And then you look over, you're in the supermarket, and you see somebody who's, severely handicapped, their child is severely handicapped, and they're shopping, they're pushing a wheelchair in one hand and a shopping cart in the other. And you're like, really? I have something to complain about.
You realize how blessed you are.
Right. So you for these, the people that put these special needs trusts, what's kind of got them to that point is, they're in a different. I look at them as like a different level of like kind of caring, a different level of parenthood that that people who don't deal with that stuff really.
Well,
don't
and in
understand.
many cases, what you mentioned it kind of a minute ago, you alluded to it. In many cases, it's sort of a family decision, right? Like it's one thing to say, well, we got to figure out how we take care of mom or dad as they get older and deal with that potential issue. But then in addition to that issue is not only do we have to take care of mom or dad, but we got to take care of my sibling, right? And the sibling is the same age as you. So in many cases, that sibling, in addition to the care that mom and dad need, somebody has to come in and backfill the role that they've played taking care of your sibling who might be handicapped. And so you have a conversation, and in many cases, where everybody's kind of pulling the rope in the same direction, the siblings will say, look, Mom and Dad, we don't care about the estate, right? That's real. We understand the idea that if you're going to leave all of your estate in this particular way so that it benefits our sibling, brother, sister, whatever it is, then that's fine. That's exactly what you should do, right?
Right.
And then we'll use, your estate to make sure that they have the quality of life that that you've come to sort of let them live. And then if something happens at the end of the day and there's $10 on the table, then fine, we'll split it.
Right.
But that's not our intention. Or, to your point, I was going to mention that you beat me to it, was this idea of people will say, look, I'm leaving the bulk of my estate to either a trust for the benefit of one of my kids, and the estate equalization is important to me, and that's where the life insurance comes in. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, there is another alternative, and it doesn't involve any of these trusts, but it can be a bit of a perilous pursuit, right? And it's this idea of saying, look, we're just going to disinherit that child, right? We're just going to not even do this. Now, this is really based on, you mentioned about the size of the estate, right? And if at the end of the day it looks like there's going to be, $75,000 on the table for each of three people, for example, you might say, look, we'll do, we're not going to jump through all those hoops. That 75 is going to go, the 75 each, somebody's going to get the 75 for brother or sister, right? And they're going to put that in a special account that ends in 259, and we know that that's the brother's account, and it's not special needs money. I'll just hang on to it. I'll dole it out. It'll be sort of in name only, but it'll work like the trust would work. And the risk of doing that is obviously down the road, if that person who's hanging on to the money for the sibling either gets divorced, bankruptcy, creditor issues, things like that.
That money could be subject to all of those.
That's right. You haven't separated it out. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So something you're worried about.
That's a good point. So is it worth it? Right? Is the 75? Is that going to change? Is that going to be a life-changing event for that? For that? For the special needs person who is inheriting that money? I don't know. Who knows, right?
That's right. Who knows? That's right.
If it's $750,000, that's a different animal. That's a different animal.
Yep.
So now you're like, well, now I need to do something with it. So your advisor, your attorney is going to look at. You're going to tell you, say, all right, you know what? I'd love to do. Don't get me wrong. I love setting up trusts. Nothing.
Nothing more exciting.
No. So they may do that, but they may say, look, it's not worth it. It's not worth it because in the worst case scenario, this whatever is $30,000 or $40,000 is not going to, worst case scenario, like you said, they get divorced or he spends it. He goes on. Then it's like,
Vegas,
well,
baby,
yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
real.
It may not be worth it. But I do like the idea. I like the idea of that it's a family decision, right? And probably growing up in a family where someone you have a sibling that's special needs, it's always been a family decision.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's not, so that's not just as much as you see as the parents who have to care for somebody, a child who has special needs. If they have like siblings that don't have special needs, they were right there along with them. The whole time growing up. One of our good friends has an older brother who's special needs, and it's been like that's part of their life.
Yeah, they have a different degree of intimacy. They really, they've been caring for each other, and really, at some point, your siblings go their way and they kind of go do their thing. But if you have somebody who
a different degree of sacrifice as well. So as a parent, you think, well, you think of the sacrifices that someone who has a special needs child makes, but also the siblings too. Yeah. You just don't get, you don't get as much attention.
That's right. For all the obvious reasons.
For the obvious reasons. So
well, and there's also an opportunity at this point where whenever we talk about trust planning for client, and we'll say, hey, look, this is really what we call a trust and distribution, right? Something happens to mom and dad. This money is going to get split up a third. Everyone's going to get their money, and they're going to go their separate ways, and they're going to do whatever it is that they're going to do with it, right? That's how it works. These trusts, obviously have some legs, right? They tend to hang around, obviously, because they're there to provide for somebody over the course of their lifetime. And you mentioned sort of the idea of the dollar amount. Depending on the dollar amount involved, it may make sense to say, you know what, rather than have somebody in the family be the trustee, we're going to consider the idea of a corporate trustee, right? And the corporate trustee could be a bank, it could be an attorney, it could be an accountant. And then there are also organizations that specialize in being trustees for special need trusts.
There you go.
Right? And those folks understand the rules upside, downside, all over the place. So what you may find yourself in a position of is it may make sense to consider, do I want a corporate trustee to manage the business relationship, if you will, of taking care of this individual, of our loved one. And then what that does is it lets the family members focus on the actual care and quality of life of someone and not necessarily have to get bogged down in the weeds on the investment of the portfolio, how the money is managed. Am I making sure that I'm paying for the right things at the right time and not running afoul of the rules and the laws? And so at some point, having somebody maybe step in, or what you can do is you can do a co-trustee relationship. And what's nice about the co-trustee relationship is the co-trustee can work with the corporate trustee. So if the co-trustee is a family member and a corporate trustee, the corporate trustee can manage the business end of things, but the co-trustee is a family member. They can work together to really help the corporate trustee understand these are the things that are important to my loved one, and this is really how this money should be spent to make sure that their quality of life is enhanced through this money, right? Mm-hmm. Because the corporate trustee, remember, they're exactly what they sound like, right?
Yeah, it's
business.
They're
right?
business guys.
And they can bring people in, and they can bring some care folks in to kind of assess the care and things like that. But you mentioned it a minute ago, nobody knows that loved one like the family does. Yeah. And that's the best resource for the corporate trustee to be able to say what makes sense, what's important, how should we spend this money so that it has the most impact for this person's life.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take one more small break.
Sure, one more.
We're going to take a quick break.
Here in the garden.
Yeah, quick break in the Bonsai Garden on My FM 101.3. Money in the Law, Jay Mars and John Droyan. Holliston Cable Access TV is in the house. We will be right back.
And you're back, Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Mars and Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Man for Financial, in the New England Bonsai Garden.
Here's some fancy
studio.
signs right here.
It's I feel like I should be wax on, wax off. Shining up the deck. Best backyard ever, by the way. When they show you the backyard, you're like, why doesn't my backyard look like that?
I'll tell you why it doesn't. What we were talking about in the beginning.
Because you
don't spend any time in it.
That's right. Because you married. That's right.
No, because you're working too hard. You're working too hard.
As a bachelor, of course, his yard looks awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Sitting around doing nothing.
Big fire pit out there, smoking cigars. You'd be like, hey, come on over.
Although, as much as I love the original Karate Kid, I love the remake just as much because I love Jackie Chan.
No, stop.
No. Have you seen it?
No. But you know why? There's a whole list of movies that never should have been remade.
Like what?
That's one of them.
No, Footloose.
Footloose.
Footloose should never. I've never seen
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Come on. I need Johnny Depp as Charlie and Chocolate Factory.
True, yeah, that was a little weird.
That's a little weird. That was like, don't.
So I too.
No acid and no Charlie and Chocolate
I was
Factory.
apprehensive about the remake of Karate Kid.
Yep.
Because Ralph Macchio, is like the most unathletic guy in the history of Hollywood.
He's the Karate Kid. Come on, doing the crane at the end there.
That's
taking
right.
that guy out.
That's
Come
right.
on.
That's right.
After getting knee swept.
And because I forget the actor's name, but the sensei, right? So he was so evil and he was so bad, right?
You mean the head of the Cobra Kai's?
I mean, how many times I use every time sweep the leg?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, absolutely right.
So that guy, you think I couldn't replace it? When in the second one, in the remake, Jackie Chan makes it because Jackie Chan is the man.
All right.
Have you ever watched it?
No.
Oh, you got to watch it.
I don't
and Will Smith's kid. I mean, he's good.
Oh yeah.
He's good. And it takes place like overseas. It's in China.
Okay.
So it's very well done.
Doesn't happen in an apartment building in LA?
It doesn't happen in California.
Okay.
Right, where he's running away from kids. And
even Jersey, all bummed out of
the bad guy, and I'll tell you the really cool thing about, because it's a Jackie Chan movie, Jackie Chan does all his own stuff, right? So the evil guy, the bad guy, I'm not giving away the movie because it's been out for like 10 years, right? So the bad guy is bad, right? The bad, same kind of thing. He has his own dojo. His kids are bad. His kids are bullies, right? So at the end of Jackie Chan or the Smith kid, he wins and he gets it right, and everybody's happy and they're all cheering for him, and then all the other kids come over and they bow to Jackie Chan because they know that he's like the real
man,
deal,
yep.
right? And then the movie ends. Then they have the alternate ending where Jackie Chan fights the other,
of course he does.
And of course, and he wears him out because it's Jackie Chan.
The best. He's the best. Always on top. Yeah. Always on top. So to wrap up, so the idea of the conversation around special needs trust planning is obviously the pre-planning is the better route. It's the better way to go. Think about it all the time, and think about it. Does this type of planning apply to somebody in your inner circle, right?
It has to be done.
Somebody that benefits?
No, but it's one of those things where if you have any type of any reasonable size of an estate, you have to do it, even if you're not getting, even if the benefits aren't in question.
Right.
I think it's one of those things that has to be done in order to protect the child.
Yeah.
And whether it's to protect just to protect them financially, and even if you have limited assets, like we said, the idea of potentially using life insurance or kind of overloading the estate. It's a no-brainer. Like you really have to set this up, because if not, they're kind of at the mercy. Because how many people have we seen, right, where they don't do any estate planning, and then when it comes, they die unexpectedly, and then the estates, it's a mess.
Well, in addition to that, think about it. You're relying to a certain degree on a benefit from the government.
Yeah.
Right. Which, as we all can potentially admit, right now, which way the wind blows, who knows, right? So who knows how these benefits play out? Who knows whether these benefits hang around? Who knows? So if you're just going to sort of leave somebody to those devices, then you need to sort of take into account what's going on in the moment and plan around for it. And by the way, you may have a family member that doesn't necessarily need a full-blown special needs trust. It might not rise to the level of needing special needs. They may be somewhat functional, if you will, but you can do planning inside your own estate plan that separates out, how your kids get their money, right? And one of your kids or two of your kids might get their money outright, and one of your kids might get their money not outright. Right. They might get their money over time or as part of some other plan that's designed to sort of work around, not setting them up for failure, because they just may not be wired the right way to be able to handle an infusion of cash like that, and that's something that you want to think about.
And that's all part of your basic estate plan.
That's part of the basics. Yeah, part of the basics. Know the players. That's right.
Fundamental stuff. All right, I think it's time. Time to wrap this up. All right, time to get
back
back on Saturday. Get back to your Saturday, everybody.
Fight our way out of the garden here.
Well, you know what? I don't think we have to fight. I think it's a peaceful garden.
What you're gonna do? You got to clip your way out of the garden. Not fighting your way, just clipping your way out. Right. Very slowly.
That's right. I'm gonna catch a few flies with chopsticks on the way out.
Oh man, oh man.
All right, so we will see you next week, and you will hear us next week on My FM 101.3, Money in the Law, talking about all things money, all things law, or vice versa. With Jay Marsden, he's our law guy. John Droin, I'm the money guy. And Christian, who is...
the guy.
Just the guy.
The man.
We haven't had Christian in a long time.
No.
Christian, you know why? Because he's in high demand.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to get him.
The H-Cat circle.
So we appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with us today. All right, and we also appreciate all you listeners out there and viewers. We appreciate your time. We will see you next time on Money in the Law.
Have a great week.